If you are somebody that, you're in a dark night of the soul, or your life feels like it's coming undone, you're collapsing, like everything you work for is seemingly falling apart, and you're in that season where it just feels like you are being squeezed, then buckle up, because I have a story for you. When I left the NFL, everything fell apart. Now, granted, when I was in the NFL, while I had experienced some external success in my life, I felt internally bankrupt. All of the pain, childhood trauma that I had experienced, and that at a very young age learned how to compartmentalize and source and to use it as fuel, right? There's no better fuel in life early on than I'm gonna prove you wrong. Just watch and see. And I did that at a young age, and sourcing all of this pain and using it as fuel to help me drive greater success was a tremendous asset. It helped me go to West Point, graduate West Point, become the second player out of the history of West Point to ever get selected, to still be the last player out of history of West Point to ever be selected in the NFL draft, to achieve my childhood dream of playing in the NFL after serving our country. Like, it did me a lot of good, but eventually, as the success grew, so did the pressure and so did the expectations. And it was inside of that intense pressurized ecosystem that all of this pain began to surface in my life. And I didn't have the capacity, the awareness, or the tools to handle that pain well. And so I started to really cope with it in really unhealthy ways. And so it started to wreak havoc in my life. And long story short, towards the end of my NFL career, I was bordering an addiction, and I remember waking up one night and realizing that, looking at my bedside table and seeing the mixtures of uppers and downers, the bottles of alcohol and the crushed up pills, of knowing that if something doesn't change and change soon, it is only a matter of time before I become another statistic on the evening news. And I knew something in me. I wanted to point the finger, I wanted to place the blame, I wanted to defend, deflect, and deny, and say the problem was the NFL, the problem was other people, but I knew nothing in my life was going to change unless something in me changed. And that was such a monumental reality for me to accept, even though it was one of the most challenging things I've ever had to accept in my life. I say all this because I was already at the bottom. My career didn't turn out the way that I expected it to turn out. I felt like my life was a ticking time bomb. Everything was coming undone. I moved to Canada to begin a healing journey, and I had no idea what to expect. No idea what to expect on this healing journey. But the last thing that I expected was for my life to fall apart even more. Quite honestly, I didn't even think that was an option. I thought I was already at the bottom. Turns out there's a bottom beneath the bottom. And when I got into Canada, I started this healing journey. It came undone even more. I was drowning in a sea of shame, because I was a West Point graduate, an Army officer, an NFL athlete, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it. I felt like a complete and utter disgrace and failure in my life. And there were moments through that season, because it was a true dark night of the soul season for me. And it was about 3 years in total. I was in Canada for 5, but about 3 of those years were a true dark night of the soul. And there are multiple times where I genuinely felt like I would not survive. I had no idea how I was making my way out of that season of life. But the last thing that I ever thought during that season of my life, the last thing that I ever thought was that I was living in the middle of a story that future Caleb would tell as a full-time job, who would stand on stages delivering a message, a story, that story, to leaders and teams across all different industries, associations, conferences, and organizations, to help those very people work through the same tension and pressure that I experienced in that season of my life. Never did I ever consider that I was living in the middle of a story that I would one day tell as a full-time job, and help me create the life that I absolutely love, a life that I am satisfied of, that life that I am proud of, and become the man, more importantly, that I am proud of of being. I never considered that. And I'm saying that because when I look back at that season, I was fully convinced that it was the end. And in so many ways, it was. But what I never realized until looking back is what I thought was the end was actually the beginning to something new. And not just something new that was bigger and better than I could have ever imagined. And I'm saying this because I need you to hear it. If you are in your own dark night of the soul, if you are living in the collapse of a life that you have worked so hard to build, or maybe a relationship that is unraveling and coming to an end, I know how hard it is to navigate that tension. I get that. But I need you to know it is not the end. It is very likely the beginning to something new. That doesn't mean we deny our pain. That doesn't mean we live with some toxic positivity. No. It just means that we don't lose heart. It means that we show up, we keep an open heart, we lean into the discomfort, we meet our pain with compassion, and we grow. And we trust that the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, has 1,000,001 ways to get you where you are or get you to where you want to be. And your job is not to figure it out. Your job is to keep an open heart. That's your job. So don't you dare give up on yourself now. Don't you dare. If you connect with this type of message, go ahead and push subscribe, especially if you're still listening. Push subscribe, follow me, because I have a lot more honest conversations coming to you as a recovering overachiever. Have a beautiful day. And in case somebody's told you recently, you're doing a really good job. Don't you cut off.